All right, then the meeting will officially be called to order. Please stand as Trustee Joseph Medina leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask you for your guidance and blessing upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators, as we assemble here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Before we do the superintendent's report, would you like to?
I would. I'd like
We'll start
to invite our Fiesta entertainers in for one more piece of performance. We thought, I think Mr. Lopez I think Mr. Lopez takes credit for this one for suggesting that a little April appropriate entertainment. So this group is Mariachi Soul from Sol Ross Middle School. They are under the direction of Jesus Gauchapin, and I can say that this group has often requested and also often misrecognized as a high school performing group, which I hope you take in the way that it's intended, which is as a compliment. So glad to have Ross Mariachis here with us this evening.
Woohoo. Yay.
Mr. Gauchapin, we cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for starting our meeting off with great cheer. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Thank you.
And thanks to some of the moms that were out there.
right.
There were
Cheering
proud
on.
moms and maybe a dad or two. Way to go. Yay.
So I'll say to the board, I was happy to cede some of my time. I'm not sure that my legislative update will be as scintillating as that. So I may just skip it altogether after that. Just preserve the good news, right? So just a few other things to add. I'll say though that is a great representation of the variety of arts programming that is available to Northside kids. Very talented group of kids, and obviously a very talented and dedicated instructor. So just a few other things. Congratulations to Jennifer Escamilla, who is the principal at Meadow Village Elementary, on their 50th anniversary celebration. We actually had 5 50th or 25th anniversary celebrations this year. I'd lost count before Barry reminded me how many we had actually had, but our last one for the year was Meadow Village, so congratulations to them. Congratulations to Cassandra Miranda and the partnerships group, as well as a really dedicated group of volunteers for our foundation. They recently held their golf tournament, very successful, I understand, so congratulations to them. Again, to our partnerships group for the Partner of the Year celebration. We have just over 20,000 volunteers in Northside schools during any given school year, and that celebration recognizes our most dedicated, most outstanding partners, so thanks to them for putting that on. My next set of notes says legislative update, and I'll say that unfortunately, every day that goes by that gets closer to Memorial Day, I'm kind of forced to be more pessimistic about funding for schools. Timelines are starting to get tight, and what we see is what we've seen in many prior sessions, where the two parts of the body, the two houses, are essentially playing a game of chicken. Each of them has a different set of priorities, and until the other body acts on their priority, they refuse to advance anything that the other body really wants. And so that is very much what we have going on right now, and hope to break that impasse, but things are moving very slowly, much more slowly than you would want to see if you were hoping for progress. And so I hate to leave it at that, but that's essentially where we are. There are some meetings coming up late this week where we've got a chance to make some progress, set a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor and his staff, and possibly some senators late next week. But by the time we get to late next week, we're looking at 3 weeks left in the session, and to get a bill out of one of the bodies into conference committee, come to some kind of agreement, the timelines become challenging. So, and I won't even talk about the possibility of a special session at this point. We'll save that for later happy news. So what we need people to do is to remind legislators in both houses that elections have consequences. The election in November sent a message that seems, to me in the last 2 weeks, to have suddenly been forgotten. And I don't think that educators and parents and people that care about public schools are going to forget come November of 2020, frankly. And if we don't see, when we have this historic opportunity to do something meaningful for school funding, if we don't see progress in this session, folks need to be held accountable. And we need to be telling them now that they're going to be held accountable, frankly. As you can see, my level of frustration on this topic is pretty substantial. So back to the good news. On tonight's agenda, there are a lot of exciting projects that are kind of coming together all at one time, including staffing for full-day pre-K at a number of our schools. First time we've ever had an opportunity to do that in Northside. The start of really meaningful planning for our first middle school magnet program that I know we're really excited about. Numerous construction projects that will enhance our school building. So we've really had a really exciting, I think, agenda tonight, and I'm really happy about that. In spite of what the inaction we see in Austin, we continue to make really meaningful progress in our school district, and all of us should be proud of that. So I'll finish up with our video moment for the year, and that is about our 2018-19 Middle School Educators of the Year.
Are we ready, scholars? Everybody know? We're good?
Amy Haywood knew as a child what she wanted to do one day.
I honestly think that God made me to teach. I'm first generation college in my family. I wasn't sure of the college path, how to even get there, or how to be a real teacher. But even as a high schooler, I worked in a daycare, and I just loved children.
Now Haywood, a product of Northside Schools herself, teaches Avid Excel classes at Ross Middle School,
So air 5 to Anthony and Andrew.
helping students who are learning English succeed.
This Avid Excel thing is amazing because I get to show them that anything is possible. I get to guide them to college. I get to show them different colleges. I'm just excited to help open up doors for them and let them see that nothing is out of reach for them because I believe in them. And if I'm their first cheerleader, I'm just so excited to keep on cheerleading for them forever.
She exemplifies what it means to have the heart of a rebel.
And for that work, she was named Northside's Secondary Educator of the Year for middle schools. And as one of the best, she has advice for new teachers just beginning their careers.
You always get overwhelmed, but the important thing is to remember why you do it. And my why is just to see kids blossom and to help them see what we see in them. Make good choices, advocate for yourself. I love you.
Northside's 2019 first year middle school Educator of the Year, Haley Gelibert.
At Stevenson, Haley Gelibert is one of those new educators, and she was also named one of Northside's Educators of the Year.
It was surprising. I was honored. Today we're going to be doing something called table talking. It's new for us. We're going to try it out and see what we think.
In her first year teaching, she realizes she is in the unique position to touch the lives of her 7th graders through their journaling and writing.
I love when they feel empowered to share to share their opinions and what they think about the world, and they love that too.
And even though she just entered the world of education, Haley has advice for all teachers, new and veteran.
One of the biggest things that I have learned even in this first year is that things are always changing and that teachers need to change with it too. Look around you and everybody's got a set of skills around them, and the newer teachers, and to be willing to change and learn and roll with the kids in the direction that they're going.
That's a look at what's going on around Northside. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
Although I think those of us who are fortunate to spend time in classrooms know when you come across somebody who was absolutely born to do that work, right? And these two ladies just are an example of many that we are so fortunate to have in our school district that are absolutely born to do the work. Really talented teachers, no doubt about it. Ms. Chumley, that concludes superintendent's report, or Dr. Harrell, or whomever. That concludes the superintendent's report.
And Dr. Harrell, thank you very much. My apologies, board members. I'm sorry. I'm walking out the door and I get grabbed. I was like, but I've got a board meeting. But you've got an executive calling. So anyway, I apologize for being late. I'm so glad. Gerald, thank you so much for recommending our asking about having mariachis for Fiesta. So that is wonderful. All right, so the next item of business on the agenda is the board reports. Do I have any trustees that would like to share? Dr. Harrell?
Okay. Were you reading my?
No, I
I had
had
already
to-
pushed. Okay. I wanted to recognize the John Jay students, the John Jay Science Engineering Academy students for pulling off, I think, the best SimFest to date. Again, it's one of those Saturday events that you worry about the weather, kind of like Solar Cars, that has been rescheduled to May 11th. But it was phenomenal, and there were more community groups than ever before, too. Retired military STEM volunteers now. So we've got the military involved. We had every after-school organization and all our partners, plus, again, Southwest Research and some of our tried and true partners. but to keep the attention of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old for 2 hours is incredible. It is the cheapest entertainment in town and probably the best fundamental foundational educational experience ever. So on behalf of Nicholas and Genevieve, I wanted to thank the John Jay SEA. And what's neat is the kids truly run it. They have worked on their projects, they get all their materials, they pilot them on each other, and then when the families come in, they're ready to go. So it was wonderful. I also wanted to thank Zachary Middle School. They had a National Junior Honor Society induction last Friday, and it was wonderful. It was full house, standing room only. How nice the families and grandmas and grandpas, uncles and aunts came. And the theme was, you would think that a National Junior Honor Society would be about getting perfect scores on tests and all straight A's, but it wasn't. It was about service learning. And each one of the officers chose someone that meant a lot to them in history. For example, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Oprah Winfrey, but just some really incredible role models and the role that service played in their life and in their leadership, and then their plans for their service projects throughout this coming year. It was the first stuff I've ever experienced at a National Junior Honor Society induction meeting, so that was just wonderful. And then the last thing was, for the first time, we had Anson Jones STEM Club participate in a Mars colony competition that was hosted at Palo Alto. And there were over 20 teams, and one from Northside, Anson Jones. And these were veteran teams who've competed the past 3 or 4 years. And I was one of the judges, and I know some of you will laugh at this, but I judged the mental health aspect of living on Mars. And then there were engineers, there were technology people, there were architects, all kinds of people judging them for different things based on this rubric. And listening to what they would consider taking care of their head and their heart and their soul and all the different ways they explained mental health gave me hope for all the young people in that room for the future, that that was a priority. And some even wanted to take books, real books, instead of technology because of the smell and the way they felt. And just in case the technology doesn't work out in Mars, they had a backup. But our Anson Jones came in second. And it was phenomenal. They worked their tails off, and it paid off. But they were as excited and as amazed as as anyone could be. And I was so proud of them because they went around and shook everybody else's hands. So hats off to Anson Jones, and hopefully more and more middle schools will want to compete in this. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Ms. Dunley. It's been a busy time. I think there's lots of events going on. I was actually at the STEM Fest also, and it was wonderful. I was amazed to see 2 little kids who were just enthralled with it. They were definitely the youngest ones there. So, but there were lots of events there that you could actually participate in. So it wasn't just looking at something and walking away. So it was really great.
Nice.
Wanted to let you know that I did go to the Garza Baumberger 100-year anniversary that they had, and they had a slideshow of all the buildings that they had been involved with designing. And when you think about it going back 100 years, I mean, it's amazing what they have been involved with as a firm. To see like the county courthouse, that was one of their designs, and it was the first red big building that was a courthouse in the state of Texas, and many followed after that. Anyway, it was interesting. I also attended the NEF annual meeting that we just had, and we talked about the upcoming celebration of 25 years for NEF, because it has been in existence that long. And I will tell you, I know when we started it. I was there. And we also are having the walk. We just had the golf tournament. Now we're going to have the walk. And so encourage everybody to be a participant in that. and have a great time. I also last Saturday attended the scrimmage that UTSA had, a football scrimmage that they had at our stadium at
Ferris.
Ferris, thank you. All of a sudden, couldn't come up with the right name, at Ferris Stadium. And the president of UTSA and his wife were there, as well as their athletic director, et cetera. And they were very, very impressed with our facility. And while we were there, all of a sudden, Congressman Hurd arrived. He had been invited to attend, and of course, he lives just north of there, and he did come because he was home for the weekend. And he and I talked about the history of Northside and all the high schools that we now have. And he, of course, was a graduate from Marshall High School, which is just around the corner there. So it was good to have him there, and I did talk with him about some of the things and our appreciation for him looking at issues for their value, not in a partisan necessarily way. So it's always good to keep those relationships going. In our packet last week, we received a letter that was written by a parent at Linton. And I'm going to say I read it and I was in tears because she was so grateful as to what is going on in the classroom there for her student. And it kind of goes along with something else that I did last week. As you know, my husband is with the Medical Foundation, and they had their annual meeting. And at their annual meeting, their speaker was Dr. Murthy, who was not the current, but the previous Surgeon General of the United States. And he talked about issues that we are facing in our future. And he's really very concerned about the children that are coming along and the problems that they will have. Talked about e-cigarettes, that's not a good thing, and a lot of other issues that he talked about. And one of the big things that he mentioned was the thing that we need to be the most concerned about with our children is those children who are lonely. They don't have friends. They don't have much of cooperation or involvement in the home situation. And all children need that. He actually had some suggestions about good behavior games, helping students and young persons, building partnerships with agency to help struggling students and parents for housing and jobs. And these are the issues that will really make for a healthier society. So I wanted to share that with you because it was quite moving. He did a really fantastic job. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Tonight I brought all of y'all here a Fiesta medal. I know we're in the middle of this now. This was something that the Helotes Area Chamber of Commerce sells to aid in the funding of scholarships. And we should be announcing at least 3-4 scholarship winners by the end of the week. So hope you will have the opportunity to wear the Fiesta medal. I had the opportunity, I was asked to be on the selection committee for the process of selecting fine art directors and teachers for the Standing Ovation Awards that will be, Linda, I think it's May the 6th. Would you please check on, I don't know if.
What is that? What is
Evening
it?
of May the 6th, the Standing Ovation Awards. This is the second year that we've had this. And fine arts teachers and directors in all disciplines are awarded. There are several different categories of awards, and these people are nominated by their peers. And I had the opportunity to be on that selection committee, and that was extremely difficult. So many people so well deserving of the awards. And I know that last year, and I assume that this year it'll be quite similar, it's like an Academy Award, if you will, red carpet, et cetera. And I know we've all been invited. Oh, we have it in our letter? Okay, thank you.
It does say it's formal attire.
Anyway, it was a very It was a very difficult process, but I know that it's one that we would enjoy. Hopefully, you'll be able to go. Bobby and Dr. Woods, I know that you're part of the steering committee of Go Public. I just want for y'all to take back what Dave Chancellor has, the weekly segment on WOAI that Dave Chancellor presents on Go Public has been completely outstanding. There was a piece this morning that was very touching. They featured, and every week it's another Bexar County school, and sometimes Northside's featured, and other times other school districts, and the good things that are happening in our public ISDs. Today, it was the Culinary Arts Department at Sam Clemens that was featured, and they had a grant. They were able to get a grant such that they sell items to students on campus. They raise money to give students on that campus, those that are in need of food, can go at any time and pick up a sack of food. And they've expanded this program to outside their campus as well. But what was extremely touching, they showed the video clip this morning on WOAI News and then broke to Dave Chancellor. And he was quite choked up over the video moment. It was very touching, and I know that those particular moments are done very well. So thank you for making that happen. Thank you to Naomi for the legislative updates that she sends in Friday letter. Also, Docs Gonzalez from TASB GR sends almost daily now either a call to action or summary of events that have happened at the legislature. TASB there have been over 7,700 bills total filed this legislative session, and I know TASB GR is following about 1,500, most related to, of course, educational issues. And there is no way that any of us, I believe, can actually go ahead and cull through that many bills and actually pick out those that are important. There's actually a bill let's see, let me get this right, House Bill 281 that's alive and poised to be put on the Calendars Committee that would prohibit school districts, cities, and counties, and I say school districts, that would be public ISDs, from hiring staff or consultants that would help us with this particular process. So please be paying attention to that. That is something that we want to be involved in. And Dr. Woods, thank you. In the Friday letter a couple weeks ago, we had an update on our board superintendent goals. At the very before the year starts, together with the board and the superintendent decide upon goals for the year, and we had an update a couple of weeks ago. And I think sometimes some of these good things that are actually happen in Northside don't see the light of day. A couple things that I think caught my attention, and I know we've briefly talked about it before. Bobby, you've used this in a presentation, but there was some data from Stanford University that I know Bobby found from the Credo Center, and among the 40 largest school districts in the United States, Northside was recognized as the second to Northside was recognized as having the second to the smallest achievement gap for Caucasian African American students, and the sixth smallest achievement gap between Caucasian and Hispanic students. And that's really something that we can be proud of. It's not necessarily on the front page of our website. I wish it were on the front page of the Express News and foremost, but other good things regarding those board superintendent goals. Dr. Wood, you spoke about opportunities for middle school students to be exposed to accelerated coursework, earn high school credits. There was also a focus on continuing to improve the Northside school experience for our students and our staff. So again, thank you, the staff, for working on that. There's a lot of good things going on. Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
Thank you, Karen. Mr. Blunt.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up to with Trustee Freeman, I'm glad you mentioned that they go public. I will make the comment to the board. That was actually took some rather complex, how do you say it, path negotiations and some other things for that to, and it's really come out successful. But I will say this, to add to it, there's some more coming out that I think is going to really surprise everybody that sort of follows that particular vein. So I think with the executive director we have and mainly the superintendent's role, it's more powerful than what people are going to realize. So stand by for that also. The other I was going to mention, speaking of being powerful, last month Dr. Woods had mentioned how Northside was engaging in San Antonio's cybersecurity efforts and taking on a leadership role. Had the opportunity to go over to your old stomping grounds, Hatchet Elementary, and to observe them actually implement the new cybersecurity elementary program that UTSA, CIS, and some others had put together. The state cybersecurity lead was also there and was simply blown away. I was amazed by the teachers and their quickly understanding the content and watching the students engage in what most people said could not be done. So that was just a start. It was very, very, very good to see. And then the last one, Trustee Hall, Dr. Hall had mentioned that solar cars was moved to May 11th, so we'll be ready for that. But I saw something new that we need to add. I'm looking at Trustee Lopez. Man, it would be great if So Ross was there. We'll talk a little bit later. I'm serious. Yeah, I am. We'll talk later on that, but I'm putting it publicly out here right now. That's all I had.
Good deal. Thank you. Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Just real quick, again, Meadow Village did celebrate their 50th year anniversary, but the most moving impact that evening was not only did other students that have gone through the system and have come back that are actually teachers within the district and retired teachers, retired administrators came back for the celebration. And it was real touching. The kids did a wonderful job. Miss Escamilla and Ruiz really, it did show the vibrancy, how well the teachers are together for the students, and it was really a great evening, not only for the students, but also for the community. Last week, there was an invitation to Stevens National Honor Society induction ceremony, Diana Pena, and it was specifically, it was memorable because for the last 14 years that they've been in existence, one of their officers received a national certificate, Kimberly Rendon, multiple scholarships, but she was the first student at Stevens who earned that national certificate for NJ, but she's also a recipient of a $4,000 scholarship on top of receiving a Coca-Cola, Dell scholarships, and numerous others. And so Mr. Patel did a wonderful job. The community, again, was just a hallmark. The parents were, it was a celebration, but not only for the students, but for again, the community and the parents and those that their support system that's that evening. Lastly, I do want to share, it is a public announcement. The early voting is ongoing, and it began yesterday, and it's ongoing through April the 30th, and they're looking candidates for mayoral, city council. You have smaller municipalities as well as school boards, and election day, just another, is on May 4th, Saturday. So get out there and let your voice get heard, and make a plan to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. The only thing that I really have to report this month is I haven't really had a chance to participate in some of the events that you all did, but one event that I have been participating in more so throughout the year has been the Leadership TASB, having to do with where a lot of the trustees around the state, 35 trustees, have been selected to go through, visit some of the other school districts in the state of Texas. Well, this year, this past month, I took part in the visit to the Tyler ISD, and it was very interesting to see how they were run and through their the enrollment and how they had some of their special programs, particularly with the students that were physically handicapped, and how they put them through some series of exercises having to deal with horses. I can't remember the name of the program, but it was they said that it had a lot to do with the emotional part of the children that had difficulty expressing emotions. And so it was very touching to see that. And so that was one of the highlights of that tour with the Tyler ISD. They did a great job, and as well as the superintendent was very good at really explaining and advocating for the kids within his district as far as the state. And he did mention, he goes, we are cautiously optimistic that the state will kick in its fair share. So not only are you sharing those sentiments, Dr. Woods, you can hear it from the other the other superintendents as well, and they're concerned. But so it's good to see that, and it's good to hear that we're all coming together on that. So, but one highlight was as we were talking about our school districts, it was kind of like a hometown news, and I had to present that day on Friday about the district and the good things that we do. But I presented that, talked about that. But one of the board members talked about what he did and the good things in his district. And you kind of have to give a little like a momentum from your district. Well, his momentum happened to be a coin. Momentum, yeah, memento. It had to be a coin, and what it says here, it's the Leadership TASB Class of 2019, and it's the coins that they give in the military. So it was something very memorable for us as a leadership team there at TASB, and so it was really interesting. I just thought I would share that for you, and we're supposed to keep it in our pockets as a constant reminder, and I keep forgetting, but and then they're supposed to call me out if they have it. If we ask each other if we don't have it, you have to buy lunch or something. So I'm trying to make sure I'm getting into the habit of wearing it, keeping it in my pocket. So, but that's all I have to report.
My dad had those. He was a B-52 or B-17 pilot, and he had those. And what they did in World War II is they slapped them down, and you had to buy drinks. So instead, I want to thank my fellow trustees, Karen and Carol Joseph. I have just been inundated with hail claims, and all of y'all have really stepped up. Thank you so much for taking my place at different events that we've had. I really appreciate just the teamwork that we all have together as a board. I find it really interesting that we're talking about, Katie, you were talking about some of the social things, and Carol's talking about the emotional, and Karen's talking about the physical with just the food bank and things. And I find it's really interesting because one thing that I have been able to do is I've been working really closely with my mentee to try to navigate college admissions. And for a student that comes from a home that has no college culture and trying to just deal with FAFSA and the lack of support that we have, I just really want to say thank you to our Career Center paraprofessionals, because I think that they save a lot of our kids that would absolutely slip through the cracks without that support. I never realized how very hard it is for kids to try to get into college. It's just really, really a struggle. And so we've got to do a better job of trying to work with the community colleges. Are they working with us to try to make this an easier process for them? But I really do appreciate what our Career Center people do. And we have a scout, so I wanted to ask you if you could tell us what scout group you're from and what badge you're working on. Oh. Well, great. And what school do you go to? Bernal Middle School. Well, we're really glad. And do you have someone here with you? Your mom. Well, it's very nice to have you, and we appreciate that you came to our board meeting to work on that. So welcome. Okay, Okay, so the next item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to come before the board? Ms. Reed?
I just wanted to mention that I think this is one of the longest consent agendas that we've had.
In a while.
All the way through S.
In a while.
But most of these, for those people who
That's
are
Mr.
here-
San Miguel's list of projects for the summer is, Mr. Villarreal, yeah.
It's for everybody's projects during the summer. And those of you who are here guests tonight should know that most of these have all been before committees that we've talked about the issues, so we actually do know what is on here. And so I would move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. The next item of business on the agenda is citizens to be heard. And I just need to read a little statement about citizens to be heard. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. Please use the podium, address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to a Northside policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the board secretary, Mr. Lopez, will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card, and we ask that you wrap up your remarks at that point. Please do not make any personal attacks on individuals. And audience, please refrain from any applause or any negative response. I hate that we have that in there. Anyway, so thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Actually, both of these ladies are actually signed up to a later agenda item, so I don't know
Oh,
if the
so let
board
me
would want
ask.
to ask them
That's true.
when they want to speak.
Y'all have the choice of speaking during citizens to be heard, or the agenda item that which is at the, is at the end, too. It's whichever your preference is.
If you're gonna watch a Spurs game at 8.
Or you can move it up, yeah.
What if we,
Well, what is the board's pleasure? Do we want to move that agenda item up?
Sure, yeah, allow them the opportunity to
Y'all
come.
want to do that? Okay, so then we'll move forward and not do the citizens to be heard, and then we'll jump to that agenda item next.
That is,
Yep, that's where I'm headed. Okay, so the next agenda item will be the naming of the Rancho Del Lago Elementary, Rancho Del Lago Area Elementary School. And so we are actually on round 2, so let's just make sure we're all on the same page. So at last board meeting, we narrowed it down to 2 individuals. And so we are now, is the board ready to go ahead and
listen to them first.
yes, but we're all ready to make the decision since we're down to 2 names. And then, Mr. Lopez, if you would then call our speakers.
first person is Melenthia Usri.
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Woods. My name is Melinthia Ussery. I'm a Northside parent and a Northside employee. I am currently the school nurse at Driggers Elementary, and I'm here to implore all of you to vote for and approve of Shirley Schreiber as the namesake of the new elementary school. Hopefully, some of you were blessed to have met Miss Shirley. She was a force to be reckoned with, but fortunately, she used her powers for good. Northside was blessed to have that force on their side for 49 years. Shirley was a stalwart guardian of student health, not only in oversight of state-required reports and training, but also in having Northside take a strong stand in recruiting and retaining school nurses to provide the best care for all students at any health level. She wanted to ensure that no student would be left behind. She was a mentor and a stronghold for her nurses. She inspired us that we could be pivotal in our students' lives by ensuring their health needs were met. Shirley was passionate about Northside ISD. She was their first and only director of health services until her recent death. She believed that if a student's physical and mental needs were met, the ability to learn would be presented. She was so passionate about this belief that she pioneered the partnership Northside enjoys with her alma mater, University of Incarnate Word. Their optometry school, to be exact. This provided the district another avenue for children to receive free eye exams and glasses if needed. Ms. Shirley said to me many times, a child that cannot see or hear will not learn to their fullest abilities. Shirley lived to help Northside be a safe and healthy environment for learning. She gave her all to this district, the students, and her employees. She's an inspiration that is seldom found in this life. She and Northside deserve to carry on that inspiration, especially in a way that the nurses of Northside feel is most befitting of her. Please consider her for the namesake of our newest Northside Elementary School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Catherine O'Brien?
Hello. I'm going to talk a little faster because mine's a little bit longer. So here we go. My name is Catherine O'Brien. I am a registered nurse with Northside Independent School District. My mother, Cynthia de Jesus, is a retired Northside Independent School District school nurse as well. It is impossible to squeeze into 3 minutes all of the contributions Ms. Schreiber, or Shirley as we called her, made to Northside children, families, and school nurses, but I will attempt to as best I can. First, as a bullet point highlight reel of her career, and then through a sort of personal timeline of myself. As her accomplishments, as you all may know, some of the highlights, she began in Northside as a school nurse and then became the director of health services and remained in that position for over 40 years. My mom often told me about Shirley traveling to Austin to advocate for nurses in schools and trying to get them to mandate nurses in schools. And then during the H1N1 swine flu back in 2009, she coordinated all of the students getting their swine flu vaccinations. She arranged for continuing education for all of us nurses to be able to have that education within our place of employment, including CPR certification, vision and hearing certification, scoliosis certifications, and she facilitated thousands of students getting their free eye exams and free glasses, as Ms. Esri noted. And she managed the entire health services department by herself with her assistant director and her secretary. And there's over 120 of us nurses to manage, and she knew each one of us, and she knew our caseload, she knew our students. And she was truly dedicated to those students. And my personal timeline as how she was always a part of our upbringing. My mom, Cindy, began working in Northside in 1983 when I was 6. Shirley was her boss, and I remember shopping with my mom for parts of her uniform. Back then, Shirley only allowed the nurses to dress in navy blue and white. Slacks, blouses, pumps, professional. When I was a student in Northside at Health Careers High School in 1993 and about to begin my internship at University Hospital, Shirley had arranged for all of us to receive our hepatitis B vaccines, which were then required before we were allowed to step foot in a hospital. This allowed me to begin the real-life experience of helping others, which led to beginning my almost 20-year career in nursing. When I decided to follow my mom's footsteps and became a school nurse as well, Shirley became my boss too. In 2007, I worked at Monroe May and my mom was at Boone Elementary. The two people I called for support, my mom and Shirley. Shirley was the epitome of kindness, professionalism, and support, and naming a Northside school after Shirley Schreiber would be an honor worthy of her legacy. Healthy children learn better. School nurses make it happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Did you have something else you wanted to add?
Well, I just, so there's one thing that trustees had asked. There were some comments in relation to, so we have talked about a school-based clinic. And I know that that's something that we haven't moved into. I mean, we haven't expanded on that to really get a picture of what that looked like. But I know that one of the trustees had asked, would that be a more appropriate facility for Shirley? And so I just had wanted to ask Dr. Woods to just kind of give us an idea of what the timeline is, where that is, so that we'll have a better perspective of that.
So, not too long ago, this idea of a partnership between the school district and one of the large local providers to provide services directly to Northside students came up. And there were some logistical hurdles at the time, and that got tabled. However, and purely by chance, I asked Don Schmidt recently to set up a meeting with he and I, folks in health services, with some of those large providers to reinvigorate that conversation and just explore that again. So what I can't say is that I've got a timeline in mind. What I can say is before the end of this semester, we're going to explore with a large community provider the notion of how that partnership works. It does exist in other Bexar County school districts, so there are models for us to go out and look at. There are different ways to do it, and that's something we would have to discuss. But I think that there's no doubt in my mind that there are parts of this district where the students would benefit tremendously from some kind of health provider located at or near one of our schools, that it was open and accessible outside perhaps of the school day, to include evenings and weekends and other opportunities. So I think it's a really robust conversation. It's something that I'm very enthusiastic about. I know that the partner that we had visited with in the past is still very enthusiastic and wants to work with Northside on a project like this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reed?
Yeah, we actually have before us tonight two very worthy names of people who have worked in this district and had a real impact. Either one would be fortunate to have the school named after her. I'm sorry, them. And this is hard to do when you're not, you're supposed to use names until the vote. But since we do have it actually really in progress through the superintendent and his staff, and some of us on the board, on a committee, have talked about this facility. And because it is much more in the arena of expertise of our number 3 person, we have a 3 and a 5, so in case you're wondering, it's not how they're ranked or anything. I believe that it would be more appropriate for us to hold this one name for that facility, which is in her area of expertise. So having said that, I would move that we name the Rancho Del Lago Area Elementary School for candidate number 5.
A motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we name the Rancho Del Lago Area Elementary School after nominee 5. Is there any discussion? Dr. Harrell?
I just wanted to give just a first-person experience with school-based clinics. When I was in Harlandale, school nurses was under my leadership as an assistant superintendent, and we started a partnership with UT Health in a school-based clinic. And the day it opened, the family standing in line was probably as exciting to me as an educator as opening the school doors. There were vaccines going on, there were medical appointments going on, there were professional development. The nurses met there. They had a place to go and actually see things in action and not be separated by distances of schools or locations in the district. But it kept expanding to offer more medical and wellness and mental health services that became bigger than the building that it was in. And so I just think it also was the one place where an entire family would come and feel very safe. Not that our schools aren't like that, but when kids need things like glasses, like medical assistance, and vaccines, it was an open door, and it was free, and it was good learning for the universities that were partnering. Um, and so I hadn't looked at it in that kind of same way as when we open a school, but it has that same kind of impact and feel. And this will be the first one we've ever had in Northside, just like the opening of a school. So I concur with that nomination, and it's already been seconded, but that's kind of my 2 cents. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, I'm not as knowledgeable as Dr. Hall and Dr. Woods on the subject, but, there's a number of health initiatives that we had begun to establish some partnerships across the county, and I think this would be a very big boost to that. I could see even going beyond what you all have talked about in terms of, who else would be engaged. So I think that part is a great idea. I definitely support what's stated. I think it's a good roadmap and plan that we have. But I also want to thank the two Northside employees. I know we can't hear from all 13,000, but it was really great and meaningful. It was really good to hear from y'all on what you had, the comments you had to make, as well as your own personal aspects. So thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, I mean, I really have to concur with everybody that, with Dr. Harl and Bobby, as well as, Katie, for your recommendation. I mean, I really think, and I can see a lot of benefit in having that medical facility in the name of someone that's in the practice of healing, and that's what that physical building would be a place where kids can come and heal. And it just makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see that. I know it may not be an elementary campus or something like that, but it just falls along those lines of that healing. So I'm agreeing with the recommendation as well.
I wanted to thank y'all. When I was PTA council president, that was when we didn't have ratios on school nurses to students, and I actually worked with Shirley on creating a bill, and we took it to the legislature, and you're absolutely right. She was a driving force. When we name schools, it's always challenging, but this one I think has been really challenging because we have two really well-deserving individuals, and so I don't know what the vote will be, but I just want you to know that we appreciate you coming in. It absolutely is not an indication in not support of someone's name as well. But I think that from what we're hearing, that there's plans coming down the road too. That would be a very suitable way to honor a really great lady as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any more, so we're going to do it by show of hands. So all those in favor of nominee number 3? I don't even know who 3 is. Oh, wait. No, the motion's for 5. I'm sorry. You know what? Before in the past, guys, we've done it where we voted. We changed it. Y'all caught me off guard. All those in favor for nominee number 5, please signify by raising their hand. All right. You know what? That's how we did it before, though. Let's, because we didn't have a for or against. We actually just had it where we voted for we actually had both nominees, and we just voted for the ones on it. So just maybe for the next round, that we keep that in mind, that I. Yeah, well, no, not that.
2 years.
2 years. I know, but I really don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. So guys, I'm going to do a presidential privilege.
Stalling,
Presidential privilege
stalling.
here and ask y'all to pull that motion back. And let's just vote for the two nominees that we have. Katie, if you don't mind, I just prefer that. I don't like us having a nay vote. And that's actually the reason that we went to that format, that structure, was so that we did not have, that. We had people voting for one or the other. So do I have your consent to do that? Who was the second? Bobby, do I have your consent? Okay, all right, let's try this again. All those in favor of candidate number 5, raise your hand. All right. All those in favor of candidate 3? All right, candidate 5 has the vote. The next girl will be named after Carolyn Mornley.
Congratulations.
All right. Thank you again, though. I really want y'all to know that this was no, are forgotten in any manner.
And save those speeches for the inaugural opening.
Dedication event.
Yes, dedication. They're beautiful.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump back. Bobby, thank you for helping remind me on that. I kept thinking something is, we're not doing this the right way here. All right, so we're at Curriculum Instruction 2019-20 Campus-Based Growth and Improvement Units. Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you, President Chumbley, Dr. Woods, and the board. We're presenting to you tonight the proposed G&I package that includes the campus-based staffing units that we do each year. You'll see in your materials that this is comprised of teachers and other instructional assistants and other staff that are based on the campus. The lion's share of the units, as you might suspect, are for our pre-K expansion. So you see 95-ish teachers, 44-ish instructional assistants that will allow us to tackle improved programming and also growth. So we are asking for approval to move forward.
Dr. Harrell.
I was trying to bring up where it is, but I move that we approve the G&I for curriculum and the CNI G&I.
CNI, G&I.
How about that?
Okay, but let me just verify. So this is just what we have done in the past, where we're approving just the new units, so that Patty will be able to have that. And that's the only thing that we're approving on this.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
And just campus-based.
And just campus-based.
Correct.
On that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that HR can get out in front of the hiring process.
Right,
Pre-K
which is
expansion.
what we've done, which we've done in the past. All right.
That is correct.
Okay. Can I have a motion come before the floor? Carol? Katie? All right. Are any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Next item of business is Jones Middle School magnet concept. Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Woods had mentioned in his opening comments that there are a lot of exciting, forward-thinking things happening in Northside ISD. And so tonight, very happy to present to you an outline of a magnet school proposal at Anson Jones. Do want to point out two critical folks in the audience. One, Deanna Dean, who's our middle school instructional leader, who has led this work very nobly in a very short amount of time. And Leroy, who has been along for the ride. He was giving Deanna the thumbs up. He's been along for the ride, looking at the facilities and the other pieces that pulling something off like this takes that collaboration. So first we thought we would talk about magnet schools in general And as you see, they serve a whole variety of purposes. One that we're most excited about is they provide a viable choice for students and for families to participate in innovative programming that's connected to high school and beyond. It's meant to align some rigorous programs of study, not only ones that help students become college and career ready, but also ones that are of high interest to students and high interest to business and industry. So what process has the team gone through? And again, pretty short order. First, a leadership committee was established, of which Deanna led. That was comprised of some key central office folks, but also principals, teachers, leads at not only the J, Science and Engineering Academy, but also at Anson Jones. That group reviewed a whole host of information. One of the key pieces you always want to do when you create a new program is you want to make sure the leadership team has some common understanding about what the model could potentially look like. And so a variety of site visits were made through different districts to look at some different models. Magnet schools, as you know, come in all shapes and sizes. There are whole school magnet schools, there are school within a school magnet schools, and they had the opportunity to see a variety. They came back and started looking at some brass tacks to say, all right, so if we start this, what would it look like? What would a sixth grade student's experience look like? How would that matriculate to successive grade levels?
Janice, can you tell us what was the makeup of the leadership committee?
The leadership committee had, again, key central office staff. So Deanna led the committee. Leroy was on it as well. Anthony Jarrett, Debbie Rule-Schaefer, who's our CTE director. And then it also had the principal of the JSEA, School Within a School. And it also had Michelle Wheat, some of her key staff, to look at the alignment of the program from middle school to high school.
So when we're looking at any of these committees, and maybe it's something that we can bring to policy, because maybe we need to have a policy on it. We're not including students. We're not including parents. I don't know. I'm concerned that when we're having any of these committees on new programs, that we're not including the clients. We're not including who they're going to be serving. And I think that we're missing out on an opportunity by not having that input. And actually, really, I think it would be great if we had students on a committee like that, to actually ask them what it is that they would want to see. So I'll bring that up in later future agenda items, but I think that we do need to have some kind of a guideline on that, because I just think this committee would have been a great opportunity to be able to have people in the community on it to get their input.
Part of the design, students do join in on the design, as do community folks when you create your advisory committee. So most of the work at this point has been the feasibility of it, determining what model, and given the fact of what we know about STEM and the future of STEM, the committee began there. But you're absolutely right. The student voice, when we began looking at projects that the students are going to do, selecting the specific curriculum, extremely important.
See, I even think, though, Janice, it would be a good time now, because you're selecting what is the program, what is that magnet school going to look like. And I just think that we are missing out, not having that voice. We're always talking about, the voice of the child and voice of our teachers, and I would just like to see it be more than just central office staff, the majority of it being central office staff. So maybe that's something we can work on going forward.
Sure.
On it.
Yes, I think voice is critically important. Thank you for that. So took a look at what would the magnet school experience look like, and then had an opportunity at our last academics committee meeting in March to talk about not only this in depth, but also at magnet ideas for the future. So what are some preliminary plans? As with all of our magnet schools, we typically start small. So we're looking at beginning in the fall of 2020 with a proposed enrollment of between 120 and 140 students per grade level. Again, these students would be attending Anson Jones, but it would be a school within a school experience. So they would focus on a whole host. As you know, STEM is a very wide-ranging area, and they would focus on experiences that directly aligned with what our students are learning in JSEA. Part of the administrative structure that would make this a little bit different is the principal of Anson Jones would also be the principal of this particular magnet program. But we would need a magnet school program coordinator who would be very steeped in curriculum and instruction and business and industry to help ensure the specialized learning was in place. So just to give you a snapshot, what you see here again is a 5,000 foot level of what a sample magnet student schedule might look like. I know you see some pieces from afar. Even if you can't read it up here, you might see some red, you might see some blue. Anything that's in red indicates a course where students can get high school credit, which we know is something we're really working towards at all of our middle schools. Very, very important within a magnet school. When you see items that are shaded in blue, those are specific courses that would be for the Jones Magnet School students. For example, if you look in 6th grade, you see STEM, science, pre-AP. So that would be a 6th grade science course that would focus on the 6th grade essential knowledge and skills, but the projects, the context, the way they interact with the community would be STEM-based. Again, 5,000 overview, many more details, but you get the idea of the specialized experience that these students would have. So what's next? There's a whole host of other things that are next, and these are in no particular order, and this certainly isn't an exhaustive list. We know course catalog revisions. We need to ensure that students know what's available and how that will impact their high school experience. Professional learning, if we want students to have an experience that is within the STEM realm, we know that teachers and administrators, there'll be some learning experiences. There's some staff that we would need to hire to have them continue to look at the details. What about the name and the logo? Coming back to the board for you guys to shape that for us. Recruit students. Many decisions to make. How do we help this become a gem within the community, but also become a beacon for those in other places of the district who have that interest? Build, install, supply the campus. Again, I mentioned Leroy has been very instrumental in looking at what does the learning environment need to be in order to have students have these realistic experiences. Transportation plan, that is perhaps, and talking with Deanna earlier, that sounds simple, but we know that is a huge challenge that we want to conquer. And there are many other particular pieces. So what we're asking tonight is for your approval for us to move forward, put some more meat on these bones, and then continue to bring that back so you guys can see the progress.
All right, are there any questions? Any trustees have any questions? Ms. Freeman?
Yes, Ms. Chumley. Dr. Woods, we've talked about this in at least a couple committees. We've mentioned it a few times. Would you please restate the timeline of when the first class we might open the first class?
So our goal would be to open very likely in a temporary facility situation in the fall of 2020 with a cohort of 6th graders. So that's how we would propose starting the next year. That group obviously would matriculate up. We'd have 6th and 7th and so forth. So the first group, the first year that we would have a full 6th, 7th, and 8th grade group would be the 22, fall of 22.
All right. I've got a couple, if the other trustees, if anyone.
I'll go after you.
Okay. Okay, so right now, thank you very much for taking this on, because I know that this is tough, and I'm always enthused when you're involved with something with our middle schools. When would we, so right now, what we're going to be doing is it'll just be kids that are Jones students to start with, right? No.
All of that is not determined.
No, those are decisions that are yet to be made. I think our vision is that this be
Just
a
the first-
magnet that looks more like the high school magnets, where they take kids from across.
Right, but I'm
the
thinking
system.
just the start, though. Are we talking about trying to open it up to students from throughout the school district?
That our goal would be to open it to students throughout the school district.
Okay, so when are those decisions be made, and when will they come to the board for approval?
I don't know that I've got. I don't know that we're far enough along on a timeline like that. I think that's probably summer, early fall. Does that sound reasonable in answer to that question? We've got some more work to do on that.
So when are we planning on starting?
Fall of 20.
Of 20, okay, so next.
Yeah, it gives us, we're essentially
Gives us 1
18
year,
months.
so we're 18 months
away,
out.
which is why we're coming now, because we've got a lot of work to do in that 18 months.
Okay, so are we currently double blocking English language arts at Jones right now?
Yes.
6th grade, yeah.
In 6th grade? How many other middle schools do we do that with?
They all double block.
We double block all of it in English language arts?
You're actually required to teach reading, through the 6th grade, and so it's double blocked.
Okay, so that's where we have our reading.
Correct.
Within that.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that was what was throwing me off. And so then 6th grade, you're talking about that, is that CTE class, the one that, I know that they have one at the high school where it's got all these different exposure to different kinds of, and they work them all, the little.
Kind of a survey course.
Talk
Right.
tonight. I'm tired. Where they take the blocks on the computer and, what is it called? Come on, y'all, someone help me with my.
Well, it's like a survey
Like
course
you
where
take
you have
one-
all different kinds of
Right,
experiences.
but you take one
with-
little section on the computer and then you go through it, and like if you're interested in aviation, then you look at that, and so it just takes you through all the different.
Career exploration.
Thank you. Yes, that, like the career exploration, that, is it similar to something like that, is what y'all are
It is
kind of?
yeah, as a survey, it's intended to give students experiences with various STEM pieces so that then do they want more of a computer science focus, et cetera.
And so, will one of the requirements be that they are dedicated to wanting to go to the science and engineering magnet at John Jay?
Again, many details to nail down, but that will not, when they sign on or they apply to come to the school or apply in the lottery, that's how we typically select students for magnet schools. I
'Cause I was
cannot
gonna say,
imagine we would
yeah.
have them commit already to high school. They would be committing to their experience at Anson Jones.
And then I would think with as much support that we have and interest that we have in the science and engineering magnet as well, that we can't guarantee that if they go to this magnet at the middle school, that they will, automatically be part of science and engineering, that they'll get an automatic admissions to that magnet program either. I think we just need to be careful about how we advertise that.
We did talk that every high school has a STEM endorsement, though. So if they want to go back to their neighborhood high school, STEM's there.
Sure.
It's just not an academy like SEA.
Right.
So the opportunity to continue that would be at the high school, and if they wanted culinary arts, they could, it wouldn't lock them in.
I'm really excited about us doing this, and then I'm really anxious and in a hurry for us to
I know,
expand it
I know. Can we do it by
to
next
other
year?
middle schools. It's like, okay,
Poor,
let's go.
poor Deanna, she gets that speech from me on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know.
I do want to thank Deanna and Janice and Leroy, and they've had a whole team, but this is the first time we do this, and so we want to do it well. We want to get it off the ground such that it's successful. We are very much interested in learning from this experience at Jones and then taking this idea further. We're very interested in that. So
I'm
we don't
very
intend that this be a
excited about
one-off idea.
Well, and I do want to add that, Deanna, thank you. What I liked is that you have done other programs, not like this magnet, but other programs at middle schools, where what I always liked is that you would come back and say, you would know where there were weaknesses that we needed to work on, and I've always appreciated that. So I'm very enthused that you're the ones that is part of, that you are the one that is part of this charge, and looking forward to what comes next.
Thank you.
All right. So, and Bobby?
This is really great, definitely supportive. But I do have one detailed question because I've missed that. Sorry, I missed all the academic meetings lately. But I was just curious on the AVID or GT. I know GT's what, about 8% or so average across the board.
8.5, maybe 9, something like that.
But is our AVID program now that large? Is that many students that participate? That's why it's done that particular way.
And it's definitely a growing program. I think one of the things that really resonated with us as we made the site visits is that it's really important in the magnet footprint for kids to get what they need. So we were really trying to create the balance for kids that need a lift and kids that need enrichment with that differentiation.
It's probably, more or less a modified AVID, right? It's not the not that there's anything wrong with that, but getting that. That's the way they said it began in California. Some other things. I think we maybe restructured or redone how AVID's done in Northside, or is it pretty much follow that model?
Our model here is really around addressing kind of first-time college going students, and those supports, like what Ms. Chumley spoke about, college knowledge and helping them access high school credit courses and that preparation for college and beyond. And so that's really the focus, providing real specific lifts and strategies for access.
Thank you. I just wanted on the side when I saw that. Thanks for that.
Yeah, our model's really based on the work done at years ago now at the Dana Center at UT around first-generation college goers.
Dr. Hurl?
I think the only question or / concern, I guess, was because this is such a robust plan, offering STEM at our other magnet schools, STEM courses at our other middle schools, what could that possibly look like? And I just dangled it out there because STEM is one of those, and cybersecurity is part of that, one of those incredibly, not just attractive, but important areas of student learning. So that was my, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. How can we have at least a taste of this at all the middle schools? And I think the discussion was about, there's learning tree offerings, there's clubs, there's all kinds of other ways we could look at that and encourage our middle schools to not replicate this, but at least get STEMness somewhere during the day or outside school time for our kids, particularly at the middle school level. So
There's just one thing that I would like to just ask y'all to keep your eye on is I remember when we originally started we went through periods of time in our high school magnets where they were not working together as a team. And so you would actually have teachers saying, these are these kids and these are these kids. And middle school is just such an odd period of life anyway that I think we really need to be aware and be careful of that we don't have having a magnet really help kids try to separate and then identify themselves. And I don't know, I'm worried about that because we saw that at high school, and we also saw that kind of mindset happens sometimes with our teachers, where, well, those are those kids, well, then these are these kids. And I really want us to stay focused on that and make sure that that doesn't happen, where we have something that is so positive, turn around and have a negative side to it. So just if we won't lose sight of that.
Well, one thing I'll say about that is, and you see it in the schedule, the sample schedule that Deanna offered, and that is that there's a substantial portion of the day where, regardless of, all Jones kids are together, right? So that kids are integrated into classes and so forth. So I just, to that concern that we share, there will be a substantial portion of the day where kids are integrated.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't see any other questions or comments, so, do we have a?
Yeah, I was going to move approval for the Jones Middle School magnet concept as presented.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Jones Magnet School concept as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item of business on the agenda is Business and Finance. Mr. Rastellini.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. I do have one item this evening. It is a consideration of a resolution to use certain surplus construction funds from our 2014 authorization. These proceeds are actually the result of construction funds, contingency amount, and investment earnings on the 2014 projects. This resolution is similar to what the board considered in 2013 related to the 2010 bond authorization. And it should be noted that the general purpose clause of the bond election order authorizes the utilization of bond proceeds for any lawful project to design, construct, renovate, and equip any school facilities. The initial projects that we do have lined up and recommended from these surplus funds is represented on Exhibit C. That is fortunately the very last page of the 23-page resolution in your packet, so it's easy enough to find. We did discuss this resolution at the Finance Committee meeting earlier this evening, and other than any questions from the dais, we would recommend approval of the resolution as presented.
If I could just add a comment to David's presentation. So we're at a point where we feel like we're very deep into the bond 2014. Leroy and his staff have a very small number of projects remaining. So we feel confident in coming to the board and making a recommendation around the use of these bond savings and using a very small portion of those savings for some projects that we've identified, including the one that we just discussed, the Jones Middle School Magnet program. So many thanks to Leroy and his staff, because these savings out of the bond 2014 don't get generated without good fiscal management of those dollars. So to the facilities and construction staff, thanks to you, because that's the reason we're able to have, frankly, this conversation that not only will come to the board tonight, but as we go further into bond 2018, and we feel confident about how those monies are being spent, we hope to be able to come back to the board and suggest perhaps some additional projects that the board might want to consider adding to our already pretty substantial list. So very good problem to have, and thanks to staff for creating that. And with that, we would recommend approval of the resolution.
It is a great problem to have. David, thank you. Mr. Lopez, if you have anything from finance?
Yeah, no, this was discussed in our committee meeting today, along with some of the other board members. And, and to piggyback off of what, Brian said, thanks a lot for all of this and all the work that you guys are doing for these bond projects and stuff like that. These are good things, and it shows how the district is viable in that sense. And so with that, I move that for the approval of the 2014 bond surplus authorization resolution as presented.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the motion as stated by Mr. Lopez.
There's somebody else.
Do any trustees have any questions or comments?
You have one, Katie?
No, I was going to make a motion.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Mr. Rastellini, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, hang on just a second. All right, so the next item of business on the agenda is the board continuing education credit, and that is actually, I don't believe there's anything that we have to approve on this. I just need to announce, and so as board president, it is my duty to announce that all of Northside's trustees have exceeded the required hours of continuing education. Completing the annual required continuing education is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member under State Board of Education rule. The minutes will reflect this information and it will be available to the local media. Trustees have through April 30th to garner additional training for the 2018-19 assessment year if desired. However, every trustee exceeded, and some really far exceeded, the amount of hours that we need to have. So thank all of you very much for being conscientious about that. All right, the next item of business on the agenda, Dr. Woods, we're cruising,
We are.
is future agenda items.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, in your blue folder, you do have a list of future agenda items. Just to remind the board, we do have a called meeting in the month of May on the 14th to canvass the election results from the May 4th election. So just to remind the board about that. And then you can see a healthy list of items for our regular meeting in May. I would also point out that as it stands now, we're holding a called meeting for June and are uncertain, probably pending the outcome of the legislative session, whether or not we'll want to keep that meeting in June. And so more to come on that, but if you would hold that date, we would certainly appreciate it. It's this June 18th called meeting, and you can see we don't have anything listed under it yet, but if you would hold the date, we'd certainly appreciate it. If there is legislative action that would impact our budget in some substantial way, we would very much want to have a budget work session type agenda item that night.
Okay. Leroy, I just have one thing that's on. So on the May 28th future agenda, it's got the contractor for athletic upgrades, O'Connor, Rudder, and Zachary. Remember, Pat Neff is supposed to be part of that, so if you'll just make a note, so at the next building committee, we can talk that. That was the commitment that's been made in relation to Pat Neff's athletic facility. So, I mean, just please make sure that we have that on the building committee for that review. All right, do any trustees have, Ms. Freeman?
Yes, Dr. Woods, there is a TASB call for additional resolutions. I think they're due mid-June, maybe, or the end of
I
June.
think that's right.
We need to put that on the,
What did we say about that, Ms. McGee? We had a conversation on resolutions,
We were waiting to see if we have
a policy. I think we're going to try to bring that back through policy, and then we'll
Bring it to a board
we'll
meeting.
get that added to an agenda. Yeah.
Okay. That ends our open session and leads us into closed. And just one moment. So the Board of Trustees on April 23rd, beginning at 8:40. Will convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 072, and 551.074. right, the Board of Trustees on April 23rd, beginning at 10:20, will convene an open meeting. Are there any items come before the board?
I would move that we approve the superintendent's recommendations for teacher contracts as presented in closed meeting.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the superintendent's recommendations on teacher contracts as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Anything else come before the board this evening? Does somebody have, Bobby, do you have?
I've got it.
Oh,
Yeah,
or do you
yeah,
have?
she
Go
took-
ahead, you
Go,
got it.
Katie.
I got the, yeah. I'll move to approve the superintendent's recommendations for the administrative appointments as discussed in closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the administrative recommendations as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Motion carries. Dr. Harrell?
That's the one I was going to do. I don't remember.
Okay.
I know we all-
Ms. Freeman?
I can, I move that we approve the superintendent evaluation as we discussed in executive session. And by the way, we think he's doing a wonderful job. We're proud that he's superintendent of the year and happy that the rest of the state of Texas recognizes him as such.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we, Katie, that we approve the superintendent's evaluation as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, and motion carries.
Yeah, I move to approve the superintendent's contract as discussed in closed session, allowing board president proxy also as discussed in closed session.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the superintendent's contract as discussed in closed session, allowing board president proxy to act as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. And Karen, I ditto and completely support what you said. Brian, thank
last
you
one.
for doing a
Oh,
great
Karen,
job,
I'm sorry.
and we appreciate you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, well done.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good.
Yes, and I'll write up, I need to write up something for your file, just a statement. Okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll take these home. Oh, guys, just one thing. So there, in our blue packet, there's this thing about street names. So if we would like to consider a different street name, or maybe naming a street after somebody, gives us another opportunity to recognize someone. If y'all would think about that, so that we can, and when do we have to have this back? April 29th. And it's two, and it's
Just
two
for the rest of you
streets.
to realize what the streets are, one of them comes off Gulm Road, and it's right next to like a forest of trees
We're full.
that are not coming down, they're staying.
I've already got it printed.
The other one,
Okay, and
the
then
other
I've got
one
to
is a very
put
short
us
little
out. So here we
street
go, we're gonna
that
say
just comes into the front
10:30.
of the school where there is one tall, very tall, big tree, which is why the board, the building committee picked the two names that we did.
Yeah, I did.
The reason why the songbird is the warbler is a geographic bird that's protected there at Government Canyon.
At Government Canyon, yeah.
And then the other one, the juniper, is a native plant there.
No, it's not native.
It's very
All right,
successful.
well, but y'all, okay, so y'all think about it, and
If you want others included.
if you want others included, y'all think about it, and,
Come up with
yeah,
something
and come. Okay, no further business come for the board. We are now adjourned at 10:30.